Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful moment from a classic story. We're going to talk about what happens when you finally decide to leave all your guides, all your teachers behind, to go find yourself. So yeah, let's get right into it. Imagine spending your whole life following a map, learning from the absolute best, only to find yourself standing at the very edge of it. That's exactly where we find Siddhartha. So what do you do? What happens when the path you've been on your entire life just stops? For Siddhartha, this wasn't some slow, gradual thing. No, it was a sudden, very deliberate choice to leave everything and everyone he'd ever learned from behind him. This is the first crucial step in his awakening. And this wasn't just about saying goodbye to the Buddha, who was his last and greatest teacher. It was way deeper than that. It was like a total psychic break. The text says he felt his entire past life just stayed behind and parted from him. Can you imagine that? A feeling so strong that leaving a place feels like you're shedding your whole history. The story uses this amazing metaphor, like a snake shedding its skin. He didn't just shed his teachers. He shed the wish for teachers, that very need for someone else to show you the way, which was once the core of his being, was now something he just had to get rid of to grow. But here's the thing. Leaving his teachers wasn't really the cause of his awakening. It was more like a symptom. The real crisis, the real reason he had to leave that old life behind, came from this question that had been burning inside him, a question nobody else could answer. And this is the question he finally asks himself. After all the wisdom, all the sacred teachings from the smartest people around, what was the one thing that was still missing? What was the one thing they couldn't give him? The answer was so simple. But it was also everything. The self. The very thing he had been trying to understand, or maybe even escape, through all his spiritual practices. That was the one thing he'd never actually faced head on. And when the text talks about the self, it's not some, abstract idea you'd read in a philosophy book. It's much more raw than that. It's the simple, undeniable mystery of being you, of being this one single person, totally separate and isolated from everyone else. It's the mystery of your own being. And this leads to this absolutely mind-blowing realization. He sees that his whole spiritual journey, all the searching, the meditating, the learning, was just a very, very sophisticated way of running away from himself. He was literally fleeing from his own being. Now, you'd think a realization that brutal might crush a person. But for Siddhartha, it does the exact opposite. It triggers this profound shift. It's a literal awakening, not just in his mind, but in his actual senses. The world itself changes. I mean, this quote just captures it perfectly. It's like a long dream has finally ended, and for the first time ever, his eyes are wide open. Can you imagine the intensity of that? The whole world just rushing in, totally raw and unfiltered. So his whole perception just flips. Before, all his training had taught him that the world was basically an illusion, a distraction, this veil of Maya. But now blue is just blue. A river is just a river. And in that simple, direct experience, the world becomes way more magical and mysterious than any theory could ever be. And so his entire philosophy gets turned inside out. The meaning, the divine, it isn't hiding behind reality. It's in reality itself. The divinity of the color blue is simply that it is blue. The purpose isn't somewhere else. It's right here. It's in everything. But of course, this incredible freedom, this awakening, it comes with a catch. With this new way of seeing comes a new and honestly a pretty terrifying challenge. It's the consequence of being truly, completely yourself. The story brings back that snake image again, but this time it's not an old skin he needs to shed. No, this time it feels like a threat. This cold, hard realization hits him with the force of a physical danger, and it just stops him dead in his tracks. And in that single moment of stopping, everything else just falls away. He's no longer a Brahmin. He's not an ascetic anymore. He's not even his father's son. Every single label, every role, every tribe he ever belonged to, it's just gone. All that's left is Siddhartha, and this profound chill just hits him right in his chest. This isn't just feeling lonely. This is a kind of absolute, total aloneness he has never, ever known. Everyone else belongs to something, to some group, but he stands completely apart. He is terrifyingly and utterly one. But, and this is the key, this moment of pure terror, of cold despair, it isn't the end, not at all. In fact, this is the real beginning of his journey. See, this experience doesn't break him, it forges him. That terror was like the final tremor of his own birth. It concentrated his essence, it made him more a self than before, and it's from that absolute rock bottom that he can finally start walking forward again, not with fear, but with this new, impatient purpose. So if you step back and look, in just a few short moments, Siddhartha has gone through a whole miniature hero's journey. He leaves the known world, has this huge revelation, is reborn into a new reality, faces this terrifying ordeal, and then emerges onto a new path, truly himself for the very first time. And he sums up his huge mistake with this beautiful metaphor. He says he wanted to read the book of the world to understand its meaning, but he tried to do it by scorning the actual letters and symbols it was written in. You know, the physical world, his own senses, the reality that was right there in front of him the whole time. And that really leaves us with a question for ourselves, doesn't it? In our own lives, in our own search for meaning, what's the book of the world we're trying to read? And what are the simple, beautiful, tangible letters of our own lives that maybe, just maybe, we're ignoring in the search for some bigger, hidden secret? What if the meaning isn't hidden at all? What if it's right here, in the letters themselves?